ladies and gentlemen, last week I went to one of the biggest board game conventions that exists, and it is called WBC, or World Board Gaming Championships, where board gaming is all one word. And it is a series of board gaming events is the only way that I can describe it. It is, and I want to answer a question for people who might be watching this. I want to answer the question: should you go to WBC next year? Should you be going to World Board Gaming Championship? Is that something that you should do? I want to answer that question. I also want to answer the question of how did I do at World Board Gaming Championships? We'll have to see. I only stayed for part of the time. One critique I have right off the bat is that I have my program here, and this is what I'm going to use to just guide my entire thing. But you can see, like, on any specific day, so, like, this is the schedule for the first Sunday, and I'm just going to sort of show a part of it. You're going to see some names written down, some stuff here. I kind of, like, started mapping out, like, what do I want to do? You can see, like, in a time slot, it's like, okay, there is Azul, there is Agricola semifinal, there's all these other games that exist. In a time slot, basically the way that the tournament works, the venue works, is that there's all these games that exist, and there are heats of the games, and the heats, the way that they work is that you just show up and play. You get put at a table, and then you play in those heats. If you do well enough in the heats, or actually for a lot of them, the way that worked is that, like, they just take the top X players, and then a lot of people don't show up because they leave or something like that. So if you're in, like, the top X players, or you do well enough, then you go on to the quarterfinals, or sometimes it skips straight to the semifinals. And basically for the quarterfinals, you have to win to get to the semifinals, and then the semifinals, you have to win to get to the finals. And so basically, WBC is a bunch of these tournaments stacked up on top of each other. Before I get into, like, the storytelling or anything like that, I want to show you a video I took of the venue so that you get an idea of what it's like, because I think that it's very, like, unique, and it's very cool the way that everything is set up, because not only do they have these tournaments going on, like, all the time of games, but they also have this big open gaming area of people who are just playing games all the time. And there's some, like, scheduled stuff of scheduled games, but for the most part, just people wandering around. So I'm just going to show that video to all of you. We're just going to watch that together because I have that pulled up. I don't think I'm leaking anything, so yeah. Hey, this is going to be a little bit jank, but I am here at WBC, which is World Board Gaming Championship. It's something like that. I don't know where the G went. But I'm here at WBC. I've been, this is my first time at, like, a real board gaming tournament, because I came for Agricola, but really it's been more about, like, learning to play board games and just playing board games. I'm also playing Agricola too, but I wanted to show off the venue because I think the venue is super sweet, as, like, if you are interested in WBC and you are like, what is going to a board gaming convention like? What is, like, you know, the atmosphere like? Just showed, because I think it's, like, been really unique. It's been really nice to see, and it's been fun. I think, like, I'm drained, but it's been good. It's like 9:50 at night. I just finished playing games all day, so I tried to learn, like, 3 or 4 games a day. That didn't go great. I'm a little tired, but I just wanted to show it off because I think the venue is, like, pretty cool. And so you, like, walk in this ballroom. Like, all these tables over here are just, like, all board games. And this is one of the rooms, like, this is the main room. So this area kind of, like, leads into, they have, like, all the lore lists here from past years. So just walls of people who have done really well in the past years. They have, like, a wall of pictures too, which I think is really cool. I think that's, like, the encouraging thing about the atmosphere is it's, like, encouraging of, like, oh yeah, you build memories, and, like, the people who've been coming here for years. Like, it's definitely very apparent by the Agricola stuff, because the Agricola stuff is, like, they only have, like, everyone likes to play the old edition. Whenever it's not even possible to play the old edition. It's literally impossible. But so you walk into this big room, like, this is the opening gaming area. Like, they have some demos in the back there.
but just full of people. All these people are playing board games. Like, it's 10 o'clock at night, so it's not super like crazy. But look, they have this huge library of games. You can literally just check out games. So if you want to play Azul, you want to play Seven Wonders, you should check it out. There's like banners on the other side too that you can hang up at your table to say like, oh yeah, I really want to play with.
Okay, I also got to pause it here. Something that I don't do super well in this video is show like the breadth of board games that they have. This is arranged alphabetically. What I'm showing you is one side of the room that is just like, these are all the D board games they have. That's it. Like, so it's like, this is all the D's, and so they're arranged alphabetically, so they have an insane amount of board games. There's some games that like they didn't have. I wanted to check out a Crocodile board, they didn't have it. I wanted to see if someone had the new Slay the Spire board game, and they didn't have that. But they had like so many things, and people were playing all sorts of stuff. People were like bringing their own board games that they had. I brought my own board games that I played with random people at some point. So like there was a ton of random open gaming. You still to find someone to play. I tried to look for someone at like 10 at night one time and didn't find anyone for a game of Decrypto, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on. So,
you know, people who are new, I want to play with experts, things like that. And yeah, people come and demo games, so you can just hang out here and play games all day. So this is like where the Agricola crew hangs out. But so like they have this open gaming, you can literally just do open gaming all day. Like however long you want, you can just play games, or you can learn games. Like I learned a ton of games today.
Okay, I also have to stop and say I've never recorded anything at like a live venue like this, or like pulled out my phone to record. Felt insanely uncomfortable. Because I'm just like walking around with my phone in my hand like this. Like I'm just walking around like this the entire time with like my phone in my hand. Do not feel comfortable at all doing that. I'm just like trying to narrate as best I can. Like I'm speaking pretty quietly, but I do not feel super comfortable.
And so like on the wall, there's like schedules that you can kind of see around, which is kind of cool. Hey, I'm good. How are you? Good.
Did you hear about me throwing my Agricola semi?
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's great. I'm taking a video right now for like a vlog. So this is AJ. I technically beat him in Agricola, and he won last year. So W for me. No, but how?
Oh yeah, so this is AJ. So it's a small-ish convention. Like it's large. Like I'm gonna show off like rooms on this side. There's also rooms like around on the other side too. But you run into people all the time. So like AJ is a good Agricola player. I don't know what his online name is, but he's good. He plays. He's pretty good. Yeah, he won the Agricola tournament last year. I'll talk about my Agricola experience, but I got put at his table in my first game, and it was a pretty hard game, but I beat him on tie breaks.
And there's schedules, so this is the seasons room. This is like a big one, where there's like tons and tons of people playing inside these rooms. And I'm not going to dip into any of them, but I just want to show off, like, look at all these rooms. They're all board games. Every single one. Every single one is a different tournament. Like in there, there's people playing. And there's like a little junior section over here, which is cool. So yeah, I guess they have special events for people who are younger, which sucks because I want to play Love Letter. Or oh, there was another one, Sushi Go. Sushi Go was only for juniors, which is unfortunate. The last thing I think is worth showing is that down this hall, this is like where all the restaurants are for like the most overpriced food of all time. There's this cupcake shop though that I kind of want to go in and buy a cupcake at some point. They look pretty yummy.
Okay, I bought cupcakes at the cupcake shop. They were really good. They were really, really good. The best coffee I had of the entire weekend was also there. Insanely overpriced, by the way. It was like $4 for a cupcake, for like a little teeny cupcake, but it was very good. And I liked it, even if it was really overpriced.
But I do not want to know about how expensive they are. But one really cool
really
thing is that on
expensive.
the right, you can see all the games that are here. And you can see, like, There's just a wall of games. And I think what happens is that when there's an event running, the person who's running it, because it's scheduled, so the event runs from Friday to like a full week to all the way down to Sunday. So it runs for that long. And like the way that works is that there's like schedules for like heats of it where you show up and play games. And then there's semifinals, or sometimes there's quarterfinals if it's big enough, and then there's semifinals and there's finals. And basically how it works is that, like, winning is the only thing that matters inside the heats. You get, a win or enough wins. Typically you qualify for the quarterfinals or the next stage. Then from there you need to win to advance. So winning is basically the only thing that matters, which is a little bit annoying, but it is what it is. But for all these games... For every single one of these games, I think what happens, like you can see, like there's something missing here. So the person who is running this game, when they're running their tournament, they come and they take the thing, and they use that to signify, like, hey, this is it. And I think you can see like standings in this. So like for Azul, there's standings there. I guess I won't show those. That is bad. I'll probably blur those. I don't want to like show any names or anything like that. But you can see like. Oh yeah, these are the places. So I have a second and a first. So that means that I am in 11th place right now, which is pretty cool.
That hopefully gives you an idea of the venue and of what's going on. And I think it's good to see because it's like, oh, you have this huge open gaming section. I didn't show it either. There's also a part in the back where they had these like where they had gaming showcases. There was also like more open gaming going on in the back, but there's like gaming showcases. One day they had what is this? There's a game where like you have a race car, but your race car is a little disc and you flick it along a racetrack. And they had this insane racetrack set up in the back. And then at some point, like 20 people came and played a game of it where they were like flicking their discs along this racetrack that had like loop-de-loops in it and like all this crazy stuff. It was wild. So people do all sorts of stuff at this event. And so once again, I want to get back to, okay, well, what was my experience like, and would I recommend going to this event to other people? Because I think that one thing that is going to keep this event alive and healthy is the presence of new people. And throughout the weekend, they have these badges that you have. So this was my badge. I guess I won't show the name or anything like that. But they have these badges that you can walk around with, and you can, like, stick stuff on the bottom that says, like, it is my first time here. And I saw some people walking around with like their first time badges, and it was kind of nice to see, and I think those people were like pretty welcomed in. There was one guy who was in open gaming a lot with a first time badge, and I saw him playing a lot of board games with a lot of random people, and I thought that was very cool. So let me talk about my experience and how I did at WBC, because I went there specifically for the Agricola tournament, because the way that the Agricola tournament worked is that I went up on Friday, the first Friday of the event, which would have been the 19th of July. And I went up on Friday because I was told by people like, hey, we'll be hanging out open gaming and playing games, and there'll be some stuff. What I was not told is that, there was a computer failure and like all the airplane flights like got canceled on that day. So open gaming I showed up to open gaming. I went straight to the event. It was like super dead. And the place we were staying was like kind of close by. But then also come to find out that, oh, there's this guy's house, a person by the name of Robbie, who I guess was like doing some stuff beforehand. Everyone was just like hanging out there. That was like where the pregame stuff was going on. So I did not know either of those things. So then I ended up being told like, hey, go to this address instead. Because when I showed up, it was like 2 people. It was 2 people. There was a guy who I like said hi to, and I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I've never been here. And you're supposed to register for the event. You have to like pay money to register, and I think it's like $100 to $130 to pay for every single day. And like there wasn't any registration going on, so I was like, oh, what's going on? There was just like a group of people playing games, and there was this guy there who like I said hi to them, and then he started talking a lot. He ended up telling me about like some funny joke that he made that referenced an old movie that got a bunch of likes on Facebook. So that was cool. So that was nice. So I talked to a friendly guy, and then I went to the house where everyone was playing board games, and I met a bunch of people for the first time who I've interacted with digitally but have never met in real life. So my old roommate Riley was there. Riley, a very good Agricola player. You might know him as Gray. But also met some other cool people like Lumen. So I met Lumen for the first time there, and also Rainier, who also, if you don't know, Agricola player. Some other people who were there, who like Sid, who I've sort of like been around. Some other people who were there that I've like seen their names, or maybe I've played some games with them. So there was a ton of people around that area who I met, and those were like the people who were in that sort of Agricola group, and that was fun to meet them there. And then we ended up going off to the venue to register and then play games. And so we went to the venue, and the line for registration was insanely long because everybody pre-registers, and I guess everybody shows up on that Friday night. And so that's when like the main registration happens and you pick up your badge and all that stuff. Since I did not register ahead of time, since I had to register at the event, I got to skip the whole line. I paid like $30 more, but I got to skip this humongous line of people. I had to pay a little bit more money, but I skipped the line. I also got my picture taken, so that's cool. So you might see my picture on the website. I guess they get everyone's picture taken for like if you do well in events or whatever, they put your little picture up. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. It's like a fun little atmosphere. So I did that, and then we went off to the open gaming section where it's kind of funny, like the group of people who I was hanging out with, like there's definitely a subset of people who were like, all they were doing throughout the entire weekend was like they had an Agricola set with a bunch of like printed out proxy cards of like fan-made expansions that they were just playing with, and that was kind of cool. It was cool to play with that. They had really high quality prints of those, so they were just alternating between that and cube drafting. And so it was that or cube drafting. That is all they were doing the entire time that I saw them there. So it's like, it's cool if you're in that group and you like want to get a game or whatever. So I think when I showed up, I played a game of Agricola. That game went really well. I got like 1 million clay. I doubled all my clay, and then I built 1 million clay rooms. It was great. It went perfectly. So that was wonderful. So I played a quick little game of Agricola that I won. And the entire time I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit of a slow player. Because I'm a little bit of a slow thinky player in online. You probably see me, like I talk a lot, but I mean, I'm still slow and thinky when I play in real life too. Like I'll get stuck on a turn for a while, but come to find out throughout the weekend, I'm not even close to the slowest players there. I'm not even remotely close. Like I stop and think on a couple turns, and like there's a little bit of time where I think, and I'm a little slow sometimes, but it's not even close. So I feel a lot better about my pace of play. Also on that Friday night, I believe that is where I learned how to play Cascadia. The first game that I learned how to play, and I have it over here. So I learned how to play Cascadia. This game was so fun that I ended up buying a copy for myself. And for those of you that don't know what Cascadia is like a tile placing game where you have your land and you are trying to cultivate the best landscape. So you are both trying to put tiles on your land that make it look nice, that makes the land kind of meld together. You get scoring for having the there's 5 different types of land tiles. You get scoring based on land tiles, but then you also place animals in those land, and the animal scoring changes every single time that you play. So I learned to play this game. It's very simple. It's just like you have 4 tiles, you draft tiles. There's some mechanics that change it, but yeah, you have these like tiles that are here, and you can kind of like put them next to each other however you want to, right? And that goes on your farm, and then you're kind of molding this together to make a bigger farmland, which is cool. And then you have these little animal tiles that you place on the land, and the animal tiles have different scoring. So this is like a bear, and bears score, their scoring tends to be like in groups, but that depends. There's hawks that like see each other from a distance. So it is a game where like you're drafting against other people, but it's a lot about your placement, and it's just an easy, fun game to pick up. So I learned how to play this on Friday night with, and I think Lumen taught me how to play. It was like me, Lumen, and Riley. And we learned how to play this. Really cool game. And so then how it worked is that I learned to play this on Friday evening. And then we went to the condo that we were renting. So I was staying with Lumen, with Rainier. I was staying with 2 other people whose names were Luke, and Chris. And everyone I was staying with was really, really cool. Really awesome group of people. Lumen, me and Lumen, we have the same vibe. I'm just gonna say this right now. Our vibes were very similar because like we're both like a little bit more quiet, but like he's a surprisingly funny guy. He's definitely serious about board games. It was very fun to hang out with him throughout the weekend. I would go next time just to like just hang out with like Lumen and Riley and stuff again. That was very fun. So like that was a great part of it, is like that rooming situation was awesome. One of the people had COVID, and we kind of like put them in the we put them in the corner for the first few days until they were COVID negative. They were kind of like banished to the corner of the condo. I don't think any of us got it, so it all worked out. But so we went to bed Friday evening, and of course we're all gamers, so we're like chatting up. There were some funny conversations that we had that were great. So then we wake up Saturday morning, and we go early on Saturday morning. And the schedule, on my schedule, I did on Saturday morning. So Saturday was the day that the Agricola was going to happen. That was going to happen in the afternoon. But in the morning was Cascadia. So I learned Cascadia, and it's an easy game. Then I showed up at 9 o'clock on Friday, and I played a Cascadia heat. And how it works is that you just are paired at a table. You just play a game of Cascadia, and then if you do well enough, you qualify for the final. Unfortunately, I had no chance playing the final, but it was like a nice opportunity to play Cascadia. So the first table I play at, I get third place. Makes sense. I just learned the game, and my tile placement is kind of messed up. The first time I learned how to play the game, I didn't know that scoring was based off of all 5 tile types. I thought it was just like your largest singular landscape. That's what you score off of. No, it's the largest of every single land type on your board that scores. So I got kind of owned there my first time playing. I still did it pretty well in terms of scoring. But the second time playing, I knew that, and I still got third place. So that was fine. And then I played my second table, and at my table, I noticed that there was a person at the table whose name was Bronwyn. And we will get back to Bronwyn later because Bronwyn crushed me very hard at that table. I got third again. But she was like, she crushed me very, very hard. And I was like, man, this is crazy. And I like got crushed by her. And then like, as I was playing in other events, like I noticed her like around these events. I was like, oh man, dude, she is a pretty serious gamer. This is so cool to see. Like sometimes you pick up on that. Like sometimes you play a table with someone, and then you kind of see them around different events, and you're just like, oh man, I get kind of a sense of like, what type of gamer this person is by just playing one game with them. It was cool to see because people have different skills in different games. So I played Cascadia. I got third place twice, which is fine. It's a game I just learned how to play. And then I ended up at 1 o'clock going and playing 7 Wonders, I believe. I believe that I ended up playing 7 Wonders. No, I don't think I played 7 Wonders, actually. I think I just took a break for lunch. There was one day where I played 7 Wonders. I don't think it was that day. I think that... No, maybe I did. No, I don't think so. I think I just played Agricola. Yeah, because I think I just took a break for lunch and played Agricola. There was another day I played 7 Wonders. I'll talk about that later on. So then I played Agricola. I showed up to my first table. AJ, who was in that video before, was at my table, along with Robbie, who is like the Agricola guy, along with someone else. And it was, we played EIK, which is like the original edition. And my gosh, I forgot how bad the cards in EIK are. Oh my gosh. In my game, I was like, I played a card that's like, oh yeah, at Harvest, you can eat a wood for 2 food. Terrible card. And I played a card that's like, wait, but it's actually 3 food if you eat a wood, and you can eat another wood for 2 food. And I was like, yes, I have this combo. And then I had a card that delivered me wood. And I was like, yes, this is a pretty efficient feeding engine. And that was pretty good. I got like a 44, which I think for EIK is not like the worst of all time. I tied with AJ, but then I beat him on tiebreakers. And then we got blown out by 50 from Robbie. So I got second place on that, but apparently ties or whatever in that. Then at my second table, I made kind of a mistake in draft. So I played 3 Agricola back to back to back, because how the Agricola tournament worked is that all the Agricola heats were on Saturday, and then on Sunday was the semifinal and the final. So basically, if you won a game of Agricola, or you got like first, second, or like first, third, or something along those lines, you could qualify for the final. And so I was like, okay, well, I just need to win a game, and then I can qualify for the semifinal, and then use that to hopefully get into the final. So first table, got second place. That's fine. I just need a win. Get to my second table. Second table, I just, like, my packs were just not very good. It was a pretty close game. I made one mistake in the draft where I should have picked a cooking hearth card, like a minor improvement cooking hearth. I picked something else instead, like an acreage, which was not very good. And, like, I didn't have very strong cards. My occupation pack was really bad. It was just not great. So I ended up tying for second again with a 42, I think. And I think the winning score in that was a 44. It was like a pretty low scoring game. I just overall, it just wasn't amazing. So that went fine. The third game I played, so then there was a little bit of a break for dinner, I think, and then we got to play the third game. So this is 3 games of Agricola back to back to back. So at this point, it's like 7 night or something like that. So this is like basically the last thing I'm doing. For the third game of Agricola, I ended up playing at a revised table that has a bunch of the expansions in it. So I was like, okay, this is like what I'm used to. This has all the expansions. So I get a very cool draft. I don't remember what exactly was in the draft, because basically so I am there. By the way, one thing that was really amazing about this event is that I met so many cool people who recognized me, which was crazy. It was great. I felt like a little mini celebrity or something like that going around. At my second table, so like every once in a while there would be someone who came up, like on Friday night there was someone named Marco who came up and was like, hey, I really enjoy your videos. I've watched like 30 of your videos, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. That makes me want to go and create more content, which is why I need, because I'm kind of in like a content slump of like, yeah, I don't really feel like it. You know, I could go play disc golf. I could just go and like chill with my cat or my dog or whatever, and I could do that. So hearing that, it is like really cool to see. For my second table, I described the game, but what I didn't describe, so I'm sitting when I sit down at the table, as we start to play, the guy to my right, who's a little bit of a younger guy, he turns to me and asks me, like, have you played a lot of Agricola? Because I think he's played at the tournament a lot before. He recognized that I was like playing in a way that was like not too bad, that was like pretty decent, because I was like, you know, taking good moves. I let the sheep float because I was like, yeah, no one's gonna sweep my sheep. So I was like doing some good stuff, and he was like, have you played Agricola before? And I was like, yeah, I've played a little bit. Yeah, I did a little bit of I've done a little bit of Agricola. Yeah, I played a bit. So I gave him I played a bit. And then we start talking at some point, like I mentioned, like, oh yeah, I teach economics, like that's my profession, because we were doing like small chat as like people are taking moves or whatever. And then later on at the table, the kid to my right, his dad is like walking around the room, and he comes up to our table and he looks at me and is like, Econ Sean. Literally, he said that. He said, you're Econ Sean. And then the kid who's to my right, he does like this type of thing. He goes, you're Econ Sean? It was so it was so good. Oh, it was so funny. It was so good. You're Econ Sean? Oh, it's so funny. That made my entire day. Hopefully it made his day too. It was so funny. That was very fun. And then he's like, oh, man, I got to take it seriously. We end up tying for second place, so I end up working out. We both lost to the guy to my left, who had a pretty good game. So that was very funny. So the third game that we get to at that point, it is with Schmog. So Schmog is a viewer, and he reached out to me before the event, and he was like, hey, I really appreciate your content. Can I give you a t-shirt? And so he gave me a t-shirt that has like a constable on it. It's so cool. I have to go. I think I have to go. It might be dirty. It might be my dirty clothes. They gave me a t-shirt. Super appreciate it. Smog, if you're watching this, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So that was really nice. It was nice to meet him. He's a great guy, a really funny guy. So I'm sitting at the third table. I'm playing with Smog. I'm playing with someone else by the name of Shadow, who is a Agricola player. We were supposed to play Slay the Spire together. We never played Slay the Spire game together, but we played some other stuff together. That was fun. And then there is a newer player to my left. And so the game is Late Family Growth. And in the Late Family Growth game, I like had pivoted to like renovating first. There was some weirdness that went on where Schmog like took a bunch of clay and then renoed, and I was like, well, I kind of have to take clay and reno. I let there be a big clay stack, and then he took that from me, and so we kind of like did some fighting over the clay. But then it was kind of lined up where like Shadow, with the guy to my left, had the first room, was going to grow first. Shadow was going to grow second. Guy to my right, Schmog, was going to grow third. I was going to grow fourth, and then I was going to kind of proceed around the table at that point. I was totally fine with that. Well, Shadow had this card that is like on traveling players, you can build a room, and every room that you build costs a read less. And he hadn't built his rooms yet. And so instead of the player on my left defending, and he also had a card that like lets you take plow a field and then later on go off plow a field and take another action. And he had enough resources to build a room raw on the build a room spot. So at the very least, he could have gone start player, build a room at the end of his turn. So the player to my left, instead of defending start player to defend against that play, is like, I need to take a food action. And there's 3 food on traveling players and 3 food on fishing. The card that Shadow has is on traveling players, you can build 2 rooms. Or like he can just build rooms straight up on traveling players. So he has the choice of 3 food fishing or 3 food traveling players. He takes 3 food fishing. And then Shadow is like, okay, well, at the end of the turn, I will take start player and take the starting player token, and then I'll build 2 rooms. And so then instead of growing second and then 5th when the table goes around, he grows first because he gets to jump everyone else in the queue. Me and Schmog can't do anything yet. And then he grows 3rd because basically it goes around until the person who gave up the growth gets starting player. That person gets to grow 2nd, and then Shadow grows 3rd. So instead of growing 2nd and 5th, he grows 1st and 3rd, and then that just ended the game. So that was... I said afterwards, like, this is a miserable experience, but it was really fun playing with all of you, because at that point I was just like, oh, I'm done. I got 2nd place. I got 3 seconds, so that's cool. But it meant, okay, I don't qualify for the final. So Agricola, the thing I went there for, the thing I'd been practicing the most, out the window. I lost to Agricola. Very sad. So I was like, well, my plan was to leave on Monday, but throughout the course of the tournament, I was like, hey, I'm having fun. And then we talked about playing disc golf, and I've been very into disc golf. I've been so into disc golf. And I was like, yeah, I want to play a disc golf course here. And so we made a plan to go on Tuesday, because Tuesday morning is kind of like a break day. So I made a plan on Tuesday morning to go with a bunch of people and we ended up going with, and I'll get to that later on, but we ended up going to play disc golf at a super nice disc golf course, because there's a couple nice disc golf courses in the area. So I was like, okay, I will stay till Tuesday, and then I will leave at the end of Tuesday because I will have played a lot of games by then. I'll be okay. But then what ended up happening is that Saturday evening, I realized, like, hey, I should learn how to play some games, because there's a lot of games on the schedule that I don't know how to play that I could learn how to play, right? There's some games that are like 1-hour blocks that I could learn that would be like pretty fun to learn how to play. So what I learned at the end of Saturday, because I was no longer qualified for the semifinal on Sunday, I learned how to play a very quick and easy game to play called Azul. And Azul, another game I liked so much, I bought my own copy of it. And the way that Azul works is Azul is like an abstract game where you are in a factory constructing tiles, and you draft tiles. There's basically a rotundra of little discs, and each disc has 4 tiles on it, and you can pick any singular color, all the tiles off that disc, and place it on your board. And basically there's like a pyramid of tiles from like length 1 to length 5, and like the length 5 one, if you get 5 matching tiles of that color, it will build at the end of the turn. So that's hard to build, but then there's one that's length 1 at the top that's very easy to build, and you score points for connecting it, for having rows and columns, or getting all the same color, things like that. So it's like a big drafting game that you're like drafting against everyone else at the table, and your placement is kind of important of what colors you go for, because that will build and score in different ways. But it's a really cool game, really pretty. So I learned how to play that game on Saturday night, and I got kind of a crash course in the game. And one thing that I also thought was really cool, so for this game specifically, shouts to Mike. Mike is the person who played this game and taught it to myself and Riley, and kicked our butts and then gave us some advice. you want to, the way that scoring works in this game is that if you are building a tile, it counts the number of tiles connected to it in a row and also in a column. So like if you have a tile that you're building and then a tile above it and a tile to the side of it, well, it scores 2 points for the row, 2 points for the column, whereas if it was just the one to the right side of it, it only scores 2 points. So you want to build kind of in like a grid pattern because you can sort of double score on the row and the column if you're connecting to that. And that was a cool thing to realize, that like, hey, you don't want to just connect everything right away, or that's not like, you know, that's going to score you a few less points than if you kind of grid it up. Gridding it up is actually okay in the game. It was also nice to hear like, oh yeah, if you build on the edges of your board, well, then it's harder to connect everything because there's only so much space. So building in the middle and then trying to expand to the edges is a lot more useful. So there were like some tidbits that I was like, okay, this is very cool. And the core of the game is just trying to predict what people are going to do in the drafting and trying to get like good draft positions. Also noting that like starting player is really good in that game because the way that the circles are dealt out is totally random. So if one circle has like 3 of a color on it, or even sometimes 4 of a color on it, which I saw once, and you're the starting player, you just get that for free, which is like a huge number of tiles that you get to place on like harder to get tiles. And so like all of these things combined, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I got my butt kicked. I didn't play anymore. And then Sunday, I woke up and I played Azul. So I show up at 9 o'clock to Azul Heat 1, and I played a pretty good game. I played against someone who definitely knew what they were doing, because I played against him later, and he definitely knew what he was doing. And I only lost by 2 points. I played a really solid game. I think I got like a 71. He got like a 73 or something like that. It was a very close game. So I got second place in that, and I felt good. I was like, okay, I have this draft process down. Everything is good. I had a slightly weaker player to my right who was kind of like feeding me a lot of good stuff, and I was like very happy about that. So yeah, so I felt really good about that. Then I played on that day, there was a little bit of a gap between the next Azul thing. So I went and played a game of Seven Wonders, because Seven Wonders apparently is very easy to get into the semifinal of. You need like a win. So I went and played Seven Wonders. Man, the vibes at my Seven Wonders table were terrible. I definitely top like 3 worst vibe tables I had the entire event. Oh, it was so bad because like the people who I was playing with had not really played much Seven Wonders before. I was the only person with a live experience, and it also sucks that like I played like hundreds of games of Seven Wonders. I am terrible at that game. I was playing this game with people who had not really played much before, and the way that it works is that you play 2 games against the different people where you play like random factions or whatever. You can choose your A or B side. I got second place the first game. I got last in the second game, and that was like the tied for second worst score at the table. So like I'm terrible at that game, but like the entire time I'm like trying to win because I'm like, oh yeah, I should at least try and win. But like I asked one person because he had his coins like off to the side, like in front of his mat where it looks like you discard them for money, and it's really important to know how much money someone has because you want to know if they can buy resources or not. So I was like, hey, are those coins yours? And I asked him, I was like, hey, can you just put these on your table, like, because in Seven Wonders you have a little like player board. I was like, yeah, can you just put these on your board so that way you can see them? And then he put them on his board, and then he was like, are you happy? Are you happy that I put these on my board? Does that make you happy? The fuck? Like, yes, I am happy. Thank you very much. I didn't say anything, but weird vibes. Very weird vibes. And then like him and the guy to my left, like he said something, and then the guy to my left like responded in some way, and then he was like, I really don't like it when you respond like this and get mad. It doesn't make me like it's really annoying when you do this. The vibes were not there. It was bad. It was a bad time. Really bad time. It was a bad time. Huge regrets about playing Seven Wonders. Also, like there were a million rules broken. There's this rule that nobody ever knows about where you can't build 2 cards that have the same name in Seven Wonders, and it's easy to spot if you play the game enough because all cards with the exact same cost will have the same name that do the same thing, and so that rule got broken a million times. And I had to like tell people like, hey, I think I see 2 cards with the same name, so if you can just pick a different card or discard for 3 coins or whatever, it's fine. But yeah, so I still lost because I'm terrible at that game. So yeah, so Seven Wonders, never again. Never again with random people, because yeah, the vibes are really bad. So anyways, I played Seven Wonders. Then I go to play another Azul game. At the second Azul game, I also had someone who knew what they were doing at the table. But at that game, I played really, really well. I played a really, like, good game. I felt like in the zone, and I won the second Azul game on a tiebreak, because the way that the tiebreak works in that game is that the fewer tiles, first it goes on number of rows built, and neither of us had any rows built, and then it went on the number of tiles on your board, and whoever has fewer tiles wins the tiebreak. So I had fewer tiles, so I won the tiebreak. So I got second at my first game, won my second game, and that was cool. And then there's one more Azul heat on Monday. So I was like, so at that point, I was like starting to reevaluate my plans. And I was like, okay, well, maybe what I will do is the Azul finals on Wednesday. Maybe I'll just stay till Wednesday if I qualify for the Azul, like, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. And then I'll just leave whenever that is done, because the quarterfinal, semifinal, final are all consecutive with one another. So I will just leave when that's done. So that's what my plan ended up being, is I stayed from that Friday until that Wednesday. That evening, shouts to, I'm looking at my schedule here for, like, my talking points. Shouts to Football Strategy, by the way, which is a game that is on the schedule that I was, like, kind of interested in. Lumen ended up, he talked about this in his video where he was learning football. He learned Football Strategy. And what Football Strategy is it's literally you, as the offense, pick a play, the defense picks a play, you look at a matrix to see where it intersects, and then that is how many yards you gain. So it's just rock, paper, scissors, but in football form. And so he ended up going through and trying to calculate a Nash equilibrium of the game to, like, figure out a mixed strategy. And I, like, in the morning of the following day, I was, like, helping out with that a little bit. Or it was, like, maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. I was, like, he was, like, oh, yeah, I'm calculating the game matrix for this. And I was, like, looking at it with him and, like looking at it, and, like, the first result he got was, like, a little bit weird, and I was like, yeah, this doesn't quite make sense, and they redid it, and it was like, oh yeah, this strategy looks pretty good, actually. It was really funny. So I might have to try that next year if I go. I might try playing some Football Strategy, even though I don't know how good I am at football, but I can rock, paper, scissors with the best of them. Okay, I understand level K, I understand you know, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that evening, what I decided I was going to do is I decided that I wanted to learn, like, a game every day, and this ended up being very good for the first couple days, but for this day it ended up being really a little bit weird. So I ended up I went to I think this was the day I went to there was a game. No, this happened later on. So basically, what I ended up doing is I wanted to learn Brass Birmingham, because I bought the game Brass Birmingham. It's on my shelf right there, Brass Birmingham, and I haven't played it yet, and I still haven't played it. So I wanted to learn that. At the venue, they only had Brass Lancashire, which is apparently a very similar game. They're both, like, economic games, and apparently the Brass Heats, they were a combination of, like, you could play whichever version you wanted to, but since they only had that, I was like, okay, we'll learn that, and me and Riley were, like, figuring out games that we could learn that we could play, so that way we could, like, build stuff into our schedule, because we both had similar gaps in games, and so we were trying to learn games where we could fit them into our schedule. So I was like, I want to learn Brass. I've heard this game is really good, high strategy or whatever. And man, shouts to Rob Murray. Rob Murray sat down with, and Sid too, sat down with Riley and I to just learn how to play Brass Lancashire. And the way that Rob ended up doing it and orchestrating it was so good, where we sat down, and there are these hands of cards that you use to do actions, and some of the actions, the cards matter a lot. Like, if you want to build a coal refinery, you have to either have the location that you want to build the coal refinery in, or a coal refinery card. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you want to build, like, a canal. It doesn't matter which card you discard to build a canal, or if you want to develop, it doesn't matter which card you discard. But, like, knowing that you need certain cards to do certain things. And so we played a game where it was just everything was face up on the table. And he basically broke down for us, like, all of the way that the strategy kind of develops in the game. And it's very specific. If you learn the rules of the game and you try and jump into a game of Brass, oh my gosh, dude, I would have had no idea what I was doing. Because, like, the way that it goes is like, oh yeah, you want to, like, for some buildings, you want to get to level 3 buildings. And so there's an action that lets you discard the lower level buildings so you can get to level 3 buildings. But, like, you would never know to do that on your first game, that, like, oh, you have to jump to level 3 buildings. But then also, if too many people are doing, like, one type of strategy, you're supposed to do a different type of strategy and pivot to that. And the breakdown, like, at a table that's balanced should be 2 people doing one type of strategy, 1 person doing another another strategy, and one person doing flexible. And it's like, if you did not have someone explaining that to you or explaining the value of certain things or whatever, there is just no way. So he did such a great job, Rob, and Sid also helped a lot too, but just a great job of like explaining like how he would think about going about doing things. Like, also he did the teacher thing, which I love, which I do too, of like when someone says like hey, what would you do this in this spot? And I would give an answer, and he would be like, well, why do you think that? And I would be like, I don't know. And then it turns out like I'm just totally wrong. Like, I don't really know. It just my gut instinct says like, oh yeah, I should build a canal here. That sounds great. And he's like, why would you build a canal there? And I was just like, I don't know. It seems cool. And he's just like, yeah, this is a terrible move. Oh man, so it's so funny. So he just like explained like all of that stuff of like all the intricacies in and outs, and it took so long. It took us like 2 hours, I think, and we got through the first age of the game. So I was like, okay, I have an idea of how the first age goes. He explained kind of how the breakdown of the second half of the game goes, but it's kind of like similar. You're doing similar things. So I was like, oh, this will be great. So we spent a long time learning that. We also learned how to play a game called Elk Fest. And Elk Fest is a dexterity game where you have a piece of wood that represents your riverbank, and your opponent has a piece of wood that represents their riverbank, and on top of it you put a moose, and there are 3 discs that you put on alongside of your riverbank, and you flick the discs such that you can maneuver the moose across the river, where the river is the table. So if the moose touches the table, it falls into the river. So you're flicking discs to maneuver it, and you can like use your opponent's disc that their moose is on. You can like use their discs to, like, you can flick them back to yours. We played where our ass could not leave the chair. Oh, it was so funny. That game was funny. Anytime something causes a moose to fall, if you cause a moose to fall in the river, you get a penalty for it, a small penalty. But oh man, anytime a person causes a moose to fall in the river, so funny. It was so funny. So we played that game, and that game is fun. So that covers through Sunday evening. Now on Monday, so I learned Brass Birmingham. And by the way, I think my plan. Hold on, I have to make sure this is true. No, I was thinking about playing like Wingspan. I ended up playing Wingspan. I was thinking about playing Robo Rally, but I did not end up doing that. So on Monday I wake up, I play in the Azul Heat. The Azul Heat that I play in, I crushed my table. There was definitely people who knew what they were doing too. I just crushed it. I don't know what was going on, so I crushed it. So I got a second at my second ever game, and then I got 2 firsts. I was crushing it in Azul, so I was qualified easily for the quarterfinals, and I think I qualified in like 3rd place or something like that, which was really cool. There were some people with 3 wins, but I had win second, which was really good, so I qualified in like 3rd place. So I play Azul, and then at 10 o'clock was Brass Birmingham. And Brass Birmingham, so I learned it the day before, and I had not even played a full game. I played a half game. The table I sat at a table with 3 people, one of whom won the event the previous year, one of whom was at the final table the previous year, and another one who had gotten laurels, aka who had gotten 5th or 6th place in some year. So I was playing against people who knew what they were doing in Brass. Now, the guy to my right who was playing didn't quite know the strategic breakdown that I had been given, because he tried to build a structure that you're only allowed to build in stage 2 in stage 1. So he like rushed for that and then was informed he wasn't able to do that, and it kind of threw off his entire game. So he went for this strategy that was not a legal strategy. So that was kind of interesting. But like otherwise it was like, okay, I realized like, okay, I am playing cotton. I'm going to ship my cotton. The guy to my left was like doing some iron stuff, and they pivoted into ports. So I was like, okay, I need to connect my cotton to his ports. There was someone else doing cotton, so we were kind of racing to see who could do the first cotton flip. And then my opponent, who was also doing the same strategy I was doing, ended up beating me in tempo to getting the cotton flip, and that ended up like being fairly bad for me. It was like pretty bad. But like I was doing okay. Like the first stage I had done like pretty well. I was like executing the plan that had been set before me. And the guy to my left, super nice guy. I do not remember his name, but we ran into each other a couple times, and super duper nice guy. Insanely nice guy. But then at the end of the first stage, he was like, Dude, whoever, because I told them at the very beginning, I was like, listen, this is my first game since learning how to play. If I make any mistakes, let me know. And I definitely made a couple, strategic errors. That's fine, but definitely a couple of rules errors as well. I tried to build a canal on a space that, like, the way that on the new boards that shows the canals, they're like these little teeny skinny blue paths. And so I, like, saw these rails, and I tried to build it along this rail that did not have a little skinny blue path next to it. And people were like, oh, yeah, there's no canal there. So at the end of the first stage, I was like, yeah, this went pretty well. And the guy to my left was like, yeah, whoever taught you did a great job. Because I think, like, for a first game, like, if you're kind of, like, in that strategy and you're doing the things that are good there, like, I was very happy with that. And he was like, whoever taught you did a great job. And I was like, yeah, it was Rob Murray. And Rob Murray is, like, apparently one of the goats of Brass Marine. He was like, of course. Because they knew each other. But Rob did such a great job. So good. And Sid as well. Sid also did all about. So the second era came around, and I had never played the rail era before because it's split into two halves. There's the canal era, and then there's the rail era. And in the rail era, the rails, there's this double rail action, and every, like, structure that's attached to the rail is worth points. So rails are worth a bajillion points because using a single action to construct two rails is absurd amount of points. So you want to double rail as much as you can. So I started double railing, but I did not realize in the second era that, like, connection is going to be an insanely huge issue, that, like, you really want to put the rails in areas where you can, like, build buildings later on. And I messed up my rail placements so bad. I didn't realize it too until I went to build buildings, and I was like, wow, I can't build here because I was stupid and didn't connect my rails. So the second era of that went really bad. I still got third place in the game. Like, once again, I got beat to the cotton mill tempo by the other guy who was doing cotton because he was really good and he understood the game a lot better than I did. I got third place. I got a very respectable score of, like, I think, like, 136, which I think is, like, very, very good for a first game of Brass. The person who won got, like, a 150 something. But I felt, like, fine with it for it being my first ever game. There was a bunch of rules I forgot about. There was a bunch of, like overbuilding I just totally forgot about. I forgot about, like, so many things that would have been really helpful. But it was, like, my first ever game. It was fun. It was a really fun experience. I definitely want to play it again. It seems like a very cool strategic game, something that's very interesting. I just had to find the right group to play it with. And I also want to learn Brass Birmingham, so that was Brass Lancashire that I learned. Brass Birmingham apparently plays very differently because there's beer that you have to, like, have access to, and yeah, it was very fun. Shout outs to Rob Murray again for that. It was just fun to, like, learn to play a game at a high enough level to be able to go and, like, play in a tournament. That was really cool, and that's, like, a big plus in terms of things. Then on that day, Riley and I were like, oh yeah, we are going to learn how to play this game called Innovation. Because there was an innovation heat on the next day. So there was one, and this is where Rob was like, I was, like, hanging out in the open gaming, and Rob was like, oh, there's this game called the Barracks Emperors that I'm going to learn how to play, and I'm just going to bring whoever I want, and there's a heat for it later today. And I was like, okay, great, I'll go learn to play that game. So the Barracks Emperors, I went to this, they have these sections where they teach you how to play a game. And so I went to the session, I was like, okay, let's learn to play a game and let's play it. And I didn't realize at the time how strongly I was going to feel about games that I thought would be miserable to play. Because I went to this session for this game called the Barracks Emperors, and the description of the game is amazing. It is a trick-taking game where you are playing all of the tricks simultaneously. Wow, that is an amazing sell. Wow, that's an amazing sell. There's all these Emperor cards on the table, and they all have different suits, and you play cards that are different colors on spaces that are kind of your spaces. And then whenever an Emperor has 4 cards around it, the trick is played, and whoever wins the trick gets the Emperor. Wow, what a cool concept. That is really neat. And I was, like, very into it. And then they start talking a little bit more about, like, other details of the game. So every single one of these... So firstly, the way that you get new numbered cards, every time you play a numbered card, you replenish based on the number of your card. So if your number is a high number card that you play, you get one option to replenish from. If your number is very low, you get more options to replenish from. So I thought that was kind of a neat system. But then on every single card is an event. So every time you play a card, it will be like, oh, you can add 1 to any of the other cards on the table. Like, that type of effect is okay. But then there's cards that are like, destroy another card on the table. And then it's like every single card of every single number has a different event that exists, which is insanely complicated for a game that is like so cool. And then there are like savages or something like that like roam around, and they freaking like block cards, and you can use them to block cards, or you could capture them and score points. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is this so complicated? So I ended up learning this game. I did not end up playing in that game for Barracks Emperors. So then instead, what I did, so later on, I went for Innovation. I went with Riley to learn how to play Innovation. There was very few people playing Innovation. And Innovation, to describe it, is a game where basically, like, you play, there's the victory condition, there's a few victory conditions, but the main one is that you get 6 achievements. And basically, the gist of the game is that you put cards in front of you. The cards have different effects. You can execute the cards' effects whenever you want to, and you can like put cards on top of other cards. There are symbols that matter on the cards that, like, if your opponent has more of those symbols, they get to share the effect with you, which is kind of interesting. So you can like use the fact that your opponent is sharing the effect to force your opponent to do something weird. So it kind of is like this game of like Magic the Gathering where all these cards have all these wacky effects. And the effects are like crazy too. The effects can be like delete your opponent's cards, like if they have the symbol on them, or like your opponent has to give you a card from their hand, or like you get to draw cards from like there's like different tiers of cards, so you draw cards from tiers up that you get to play. And so I learned to play this game. It's kind of complicated. I played it with Riley twice. The first game, there is this weird rule where if you try to draw a card, so there's stages 1 through 10. If you try and draw a card from stage 11 or higher, or you try and draw a card from a stage and there's nothing above it, so like the stage 10 deck is empty and you try and draw a stage 10, well, normally the game will default to cards with higher numbers on them. Well, you can't draw cards with higher numbers on them, so the game will just end. So the game ends. It ends. It just ends if you cannot draw a card. So I put a tier 10 card in front of me. Riley, my opponent, said draw a card from tier 11. I couldn't do that, so the game ended, and then whoever had the most points wins. And so because I just didn't read that he had this card that makes you draw cards, and I played this card from stage 10, he just we played this like hour-long game. He forced me to draw a card. I just immediately lost. So it's like the crux of why I dislike the game so much. There's too much to keep track of. Way too much. It's like so ridiculous, the amount of information that you have to keep track of like, this is what all your opponent's cards do, this is what all your cards do, this is what all the cards in your hand do. They all have different crazy ridiculous effects. And we played a second game that like I lost in a more fair way, and I was like, this is ridiculous. There's just too much going on, and it's just like a nightmare to keep track of when I'm just gonna lose to something ridiculous. So like I learned to play it. I play a second heat. Another game, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna play in this. I'm not gonna indulge in this. So we tried to learn to play that. It was whatever. Then at the evening, so then we get to the evening of Monday, and the evening of Monday, there was another Cascadia heat. And Cascadia, I was like, this game is fun. I can't play in the final, so I will go and play in the Cascadia heat. I go and play the Cascadia heat. I get sat at a table with none other than Bronwyn, the person who crushed me in my second game. And we play a game where, once again, she crushes me so hard. We had this objective that is like, you need to get a ring of elks. So you need an elk in like a ring. The bigger your ring is, the better it is. And then we also had this fox objective where the number of same animals connected to the fox, like that scores you more points. But then also in this game, like you can't just place the animals, you also have to worry about your landscape and all this other stuff. So like I am like worrying about my landscape, and I was like, man, the dream would be to get a ring of elk and then put a fox right in the middle. Oh, that would look so sweet. And I could just never line it up because other people were doing elks and things like that. So I was like, I had this in the back of my mind. I was like, yeah, I can't really do elks, but like, man, that would be the dream. I look over at Bronwyn's board. Bronwyn's board, is beautiful. All of her landscapes are connected. They're all great. And then she has this big ring of elk with a fox right in the middle. I was like, dude, she is the GOAT of this game. And so she crushed us. And then after the game, and like I got second on a tiebreak, which was crazy. So I barely got second in that game. And then I asked her, I was like, Bronwyn, what are you doing in this game that is different? And she was like, yeah, I'm just like trying to, because I was focused a lot on like the drafting process and like a lot of my landscape and not as much of my animals. And she was like, yeah, I'm basically just focusing on like making sure my landscape looks okay and everything is okay. And then I'm starting to focus on like, okay, what are other people doing? Because you want to compete with people on the right landscapes. If you're trying to like, there's bonuses for having the largest of one specific landscape. So you want to pick your battles in terms of that. So she was like, yeah, I focus on making my stuff look nice. I think about what tiles would be nice to look out for those for different spots where they would fit in, and then I pay attention to other people. And I was like, wow, that is like really good advice for a game like this where like that placement is such a big puzzle. And I think that's like good. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. This is a great way to take away. By the way, if you are at any sort of tournament of any kind, this is the proper etiquette for like giving/asking advice. And this will come up again later, is that like, if someone asks you for advice, that's great time to like give advice and give your honest opinion about what people are doing or whatever. Giving advice that is unsolicited when you have like a close game or whatever, don't do that. don't do that. Don't be like, oh yeah, you got fourth place in this game, but yeah, you really could have done this better. Like, yeah, you really should have done this action. Like, yeah, I think that you just really played badly in this spot, and I think you could have done it. Do not do that. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but like, don't do that. Just like normalize saying GG, getting up, walking away from the table, unless someone asks. Like, if someone is curious, like, hey, what are you doing in this game? Like, what is your process of thinking about the game? Like, I want to know. That is where you can share your knowledge and whatever, because then that person wants to do it. But like, if you're just like, you had a bad game or whatever and you're a little frustrated and you're just like GGing out, then like normalize just saying GG and walking away. Like, that's all you have to do. Like, giving advice when people don't ask for it is annoying as hell. We'll get to that later on. So Bronwyn, awesome. And I said, and Riley came over and I was like, Riley, watch out for her. She's a shark. She's a shark. I would come to find out later, Bronwyn won Cascadia. Riley was in the finals with her and got fourth. So I came to find out later that she went on to win Cascadia. She's the GOAT. Bronwyn the GOAT. If you ever see Bronwyn in Cascadia table, it's over for you. You're looking in the face of a total monster. Shouts to Bronwyn. She was awesome. She's great. I'm glad she won. She deserved it. She played great. At my two tables with her, she played amazingly. So I'm glad she won. Super deserved it. So I think that evening I also, I don't know what I played, but I learned to play that, and I was like, yeah, I don't really think there's anything else I want to play. Like, I'm just going to do open gaming stuff and just, like, play whatever. So Tuesday rolls around. We go disc golfing. In the morning, it's me, Riley, Lumen, and Luke from our room, and then Riley, who is not staying with us but is a friend. He decided to tag along, and that it was so fun. The course we went to was beautiful. It was just very fun. There was a there's two different colors of tees on disc golf courses sometimes, where there's white tees that are like easier and there's blue tees which are harder. I guess last time that they went, like Luke and his friend played off blue tees, and they were saying they got destroyed. One of the blue tees we went to, there was like a big lake that is probably like a 200-foot shot over the lake that you have to clear in order to not have your disc go into the lake and sink to the bottom of it. For fun, Luke threw a disc off of it, and it swerved left and went into the lake. But it was a disc he was okay losing, but it was I wish I had taken a video of it. It was very funny watching it like dip left, and then like you watch it like plop into the water and sink. It was very funny. But yeah, Luke, insanely good at disc golf. Lumen is so good at disc golf. I did not know that Lumen could throw a disc. Lumen was very good. He was really good. I was trying some weird stuff at the beginning where I was trying to get a lot of distance, but I was like torquing my arms too much, and that was like causing me to throw the disc wherever. And so at some point I stopped doing that and I started playing okay. And it was Riley's like second time ever disc golfing, I think, and we played a pretty hard course, honestly, for Riley. So he did pretty well for it being his second time playing. But the highlight of that trip for me is that on the very last hole, it's like this downhill. The course had these two really amazing downhill shots. One was on the first hole, which is just like straight downhill, so you can throw a disc and it will just sail through the air. It's beautiful. And I threw it a little bit off course on the first one. The last hole is just this downhill hole. It's probably like 250 feet, just like pure downhill. So you can throw like a pretty soft shot and it will just kind of like float straight to the basket. I threw a perfectly straight shot that bounced off the rim of the basket from the hole and just like plopped right on the side of the ground. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful shot I've ever seen in my life. So that was my first basket hit, and that felt really good. I was the only person to get birdie on that hole. Everyone else got par, and so I made the joke of like, oh yeah, this is the one that counts, right? This is the only one that counts. If I get a birdie, everyone else gets a par in this hole. That's what counts, right? I win this because my score was like 25 over or that's something like that at that point. So I was like, yeah, this is the only one that counts, right? So that was very fun, super duper fun. I definitely am looking forward to doing that again next year. So after we did that on Tuesday, we went to open gaming, and basically just open gaming. I played a couple games of Agricola. I got second in one of them. I won another one. We played, what else did I do? I played some Elk. I played a bunch of random things. We played some Ricochet robots, which is the GOAT, obviously. Riley kind of kicked my butt, Ricochet robots, I'm not gonna lie. It was good. I've been playing a lot with my friends. I've been getting like a little bit too much ego, and so it was good to be knocked back down to earth. So yeah, I did that. Played a lot of open gaming. Did some more Elk Fest, because Elk Fest is hilarious. Did some more Elk Fest, flicked some more discs, and yeah, it was just like had a fun time at open gaming. Now, on Wednesday morning, this brings us to Wednesday when the Azul final is. In the morning, there's like Root, but I didn't really want to play. I really want to play Root next year, but I didn't want to play Root because I don't want to like get too good for my play group, because my play group is like a lot more casual and I'm like a pretty serious gamer, so it's like if I play something too much, I don't want to like have too much of a skill difference between me and my play group. I'd rather have it be like similar for as long as possible, right? Just to like have a more fair playing experience, especially the game like Root where there's not really a handicap. Like in Terra Mystica, I can at least handicap the amount of points that I start with, and that's like okay, but in Root I can't really do that. So I was like, yeah, I just want to, you know, I really want to keep this. So like next year I'll probably play Root. I'll try and get the Root out of my system in the next year. But so Root is a game that I was like, oh, I want to play. So I showed up in the morning and my intention was to just like do open gaming. I did brunch. By the way, for food, I have to do a little tangent. For food at the venue, the food is all bad except for, and very expensive except for the restaurant food. The restaurant food is good. Everything else was like bad. Oh, and the cupcake shop. The cupcake shop was also really good. But yeah, it was just like I showed up and I didn't really have anything to do, and I was like, I could open game. At some point I tried to learn the rules of Arc Nova, and that was like, someday I'll learn Arc Nova, but man, it's just like too complicated of a game. I think that was around the time I was learning Brass. I was like, yeah, I can learn Arc Nova. There were some other games I wanted to learn. I ended up playing a game called where is it? It's on my shelf. Metropolis. That game's great. And it was like, it was fine. Like that was fine. That game's fun. I like that game a lot. But then after that, I was like in open gaming, and I was drained at that point. Like it's like 5 straight days of just thinking about new games, playing old games, like being in a thinky setting. Like people were off doing different things, and I was like, man, dude, I am just beat. So I just like sat in the corner for like a couple hours on my phone, and I just chilled. I just chilled, and it was like, it was kind of weird because I didn't really know what games I wanted to play. Like the Agricola people weren't there that day, so I was like, I didn't really want to cube draft. I didn't want to do anything like that, and I was like, yeah, there's not really any games I feel like playing. I just kind of, I just hung out and did nothing, and it was kind of like, I don't know, it was weird. I was like, I was happy to have been there, but at that point I was like really drained. I was super drained. So I just sat around and waited for the Azul final, or the Azul quarterfinal. And then, and that's where I was like, okay, if you don't have friends to play games with, or you don't have people to play board games with, you kind of have to be a little proactive in looking for open games and looking for games that you want to go to. And that is where I think that the, like, concept of the event is a little bit wishy-washy to me, is that I think you can make friends through doing a lot of the heats. But unless you play a big diversity of games and you're comfortable going to, like, the different heats for those diversity of games, then, like, it's hard to justify for a person who's like, if you're very casual and you're happy playing a wide variety of board games and you have people to play those board games with, insanely fun event. Even if you're serious and you have people to play board games with in your off time, that's also good. But like, basically, if you go there and you have off time, you can get open games of stuff, but like, I think it can be hit or miss. It really can depend on the game that you're playing, can depend on the time of day. And so even though there's like a ton of people playing, it can be a little bit unreliable. We did do games of Decrypto on Tuesday evening. Oh man, was that fun. Oh man, game Decrypto with people who are big nerds was so fun. I played with Rob Murray and with someone else, and man, that was hilarious. It was so funny. I like tried to give a simple clue, and like it got interpreted in a way that was like insanely unlucky, because we had rocket and we had nose, and I wanted to describe cone for rocket because like rockets kind of look like a cone, but then their interpretation was like, well, the nose of the rocket, that is what looks like a cone, even though it wasn't rocket nose, it was just regular nose. And I didn't think about the fact that it could be interpreted that way, and it led to us losing the game. It was so funny. Oh man, it was really, really fun. I also said the rudest thing that I had said, which is in one of our rounds we had also, if you don't know how Decrypto works, basically you have 4 words in front of you. Your opponent's team doesn't know what they are. You give clues for a sequence of those words, and your opponent is trying to crack the code and guess what the sequence is without being able to see the words. So over time, basically, as you give more and more clues, they will have a better idea of what the word is, right? Because like if I give cone for rocket and I give like blast off as another clue, right? You can kind of get the sense like, okay, blast off, it's like a cone shape. This is kind of like a rocket or a firework or something like that. So eventually they're going to get a feel for it, so you kind of have to throw people off. So, on one of the clues we had the words trombone and drum, and one of our teammates, Sid, gave us the clue sound for when we had drum and trombone, and that clue prompted me to say like, yeah, I don't think he knows anything about music if he's giving us sound for drum and trombone. Which I felt really bad about. I felt super bad about that. So sorry, Sid. It turns out he played the piano. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just mad. And it turns out he wanted us to guess trombone because trombone is a harder word. It was really funny. So it was great fun. I had a great time playing Decrypto. So we did a bunch of casuals. I really want to play Blood on the Clock Tower. Apparently there's a big Blood on the Clock Tower thing, but it doesn't start till like after 11. So if you want to play Blood on the Clock Tower, it's like a big thing. So on Wednesday, after sitting around for a while and like chilling and kind of wishing I was at home, honestly, I was kind of gamed out at that point. But like if I had friends there or something like that to do stuff with, or I had like a Crokinole board, that's what I really need. I need to buy and bring a Crokinole board next time. So at 3 o'clock, we do the Azul quarterfinals. And the Azul quarterfinals, I am paired at a table with 3 other people who, they seemed like pretty good. I just kind of crushed them. I kind of crushed. I just kind of like, I played very solidly. The other people were doing really good. They were not allowing me to get triples, which is something that I had not really seen. They were playing a little bit more proactively, a little bit more defensively, and I just kind of like executed my strategy. I got stuff in good spots. I got a pretty decent score in the game ended, and I felt great about it. So I got like an 80-something, and the next highest score was like a 70-something. So I just kind of like cruised to a nice, chill victory in that game, and that felt really good. So I won the Azul quarterfinals. Now I made it to the Azul semifinals, and that is where stuff kind of really ramps up, is in the semifinals. Because at my table, it is me, someone sitting to the left of me who was a person I tied with in the game with Bronwyn. So I know that they're like pretty decent at games. So she was pretty decent at games. And then someone across the table from me who was like an older guy. And then someone to my right who I was the guy who beat me at the one table that I lost at. And so him, I knew that he knew what he was doing. And in Azul, you want the bad player, like the worst player at the table, to be to your right because they will pass you, like give you good stacks of resources. But the person on my right, I was like, they are a very good player, which is a bummer because you want the good player to be on your left or something like that, right? You don't want that good player to be there. So we played a very intense game. It was kind of annoying in a couple aspects. The person to my left kept taking the starting player token immediately, which I was annoyed by because it meant I went last a lot, and that's not a great place to be in a 4-player game of Azul. But it gets to the last turn of the game, and the way that the game ends is it ends when when one person gets an entire row. And so the person to my right, who's a very good player, he had the choice of ending the game. And so he has this decision of whether he wants to end the game or not, and he does the math of who is winning the game. And apparently, according to his math, the gentleman to his right would have gotten a single point higher than me had the game ended then. But it meant that this guy to my right is in third place currently. He has no incentive to end the game. So instead of ending the game, he prolongs the game for a single turn. And that allows me on the last turn to get a bunch of like really insane bonuses for myself that really pushes me over the top. I just kind of like force like these two tiles to be built that are really good. And then I end up winning that game because it gets prolonged for a turn, which is a little bit fortunate, but the guy to my right did what he did, and I was still very close anyways, even if the game had ended. So I make it to the final table. So I'm at the final table. There is this very sweet Asian lady who is sitting on my left. There is a board gaming tryhard, I think is my best way of describing him, sitting on the right, and there is a younger kid sitting across from me who's also a little bit of he's maybe a little bit of a tryhard too, but he was pretty nice. I think the guy to my right, we'll talk about later on. I don't remember their names, probably for the best. But at some point, the guy to my right and the guy across from me, the kid, they start talking about like the Vegas Board Gaming Championships, because I guess the guy to my right has played in the Vegas Board Gaming Championships or something like that. And so I was like, okay, they are fairly serious about board gaming. So the game starts and is going, and it's a very interesting game. I end up like not being very coordinated, but I have a lot of opportunities for things. I kind of mess something up in the mid game that is like a tile where it's like, man, I really want to get 2 colors, because if you get all of a color, you get 10 points. And I was trying to aim for 2 of a color, and then I made it impossible for myself to do that. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to get a bunch of points. And then the last turn broke really well for me. I ended up getting a triple that was like really good for me. And then I'm lined up to get this one color completed in 2 different places. And if I get it completed in those 2 different places, I'm like crushing this game. I'm completely crushing it. So even without it, it's still going to be close. But with those 2, I'm like completely crushing the game. And meanwhile, the 2 people in front of me, they're paying a lot of attention to each other. And like the guy across from me is really cutting the guy to my right. The guy to my right is trying to adapt and deal with that. And he's like cutting me. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff. The Asian lady, the kind Asian lady to my left, she is just playing her own game. She's trying to build the best board possible, which is great. So on the last turn of the game, I need a single black tile in order to complete my thing. And there are exactly 2 of them on the board. The person to my left does not take a black tile. She does something completely different because she's playing her own game. And one thing I have to say, by the way, is that like the table talk at these tables was insane. Like I made a point of like asking the arbiter, like, hey, is table talk allowed? Like, are you allowed to say stuff? Because like in games, if you can convince other people like that you are not very strong or whatever, like that's a big advantage. And the arbiter at some point came over and was like, hey, you should not table talk at the table. And in my semifinal table, there was like some sketchiness, and that was fine. At some point in the final table, the guy to my right going into the final round is like, yeah, I'll be surprised if I don't take last. I'll be shocked if I don't take last. Like, he's trying to lower his threat level. He is clearly someone who like plays a lot of board games, and he's like, I didn't realize this until after that like this is what was going on, but he was like very clearly trying to like lower his threat level, which like you're explicitly not allowed to do. So I was like thinking about it afterwards, I was like a little bit mad about that I was like, oh yeah, this person's table talking. But then as we go into that final round where like she takes something, like, fortunately here, the no table talk I think was like good, because it's like if both those people across from me, if they coordinate to take each take the one black tile, if they just like handshake and agree to that, then I'm screwed, and it screws me over. So the person to my left, the nice old Asian lady, she takes her tiles or whatever. the guy across me to my left, he does a long think. He definitely like knows the no table talk policy, but he's like having a long think as to whether he wants to take this or not, because basically if he takes the single black tile, it totally tanks his game. It's terrible for his game to do this. It completely tanks his game to do this, but then he thinks for a very long time. And he's like looking at the guy to his right. He's not looking back. He's like trying to figure out, should I take this black tile or not? He ends up taking the black tile, which tanks his own game. And then he ends up getting fourth place at the end of all of it. The guy to my right obviously takes the other black tile because it just like crushes me, and then I end up knocking the black tile. So what it means though is that because these two people needed to take the black tile, which tanked their own games, it tanked the guy across from me's game a lot more. Guess who won? The sweet Asian lady sitting to my left who was paying attention to their own thing. So it was kind of awesome. It was kind of an awesome result that you had these like three like sweaty nerds, who I'm including myself in this, who are like trying really hard at this game, and then you had like a nice Asian lady who's just like doing her own thing and working on her own board, and then she ends up winning because we all end up like taking each other out. It was very funny. So like she ended up winning. I ended up tied for second with the guy to my right, but then he ends up beating me on a tiebreaker because he has more rows than me, and then the guy across from me who hated me ends up getting last. So it was a very fun game. I ended up getting third place in Azul. So for this game, I ended up like, I learned it. I got crushed, and then it was like second place, first place, first place, first place, first place, third place. So I ended up getting this plaque. So now I have a plaque for Azul. Look at this. I'm not actually the third best in Azul, but look at this cool plaque. So I have this cool plaque that is here. So now I'm an Azul god. Definitely this was like huge luck, by the way. I've gone on BGA and I played some 4-player games since then, and this was maybe a little bit of a fluke. Maybe a little teeny bit of a fluke. I definitely have gotten crushed a little bit and humbled in 4-player games, but I basically became the third best Azul player of all time in like a week of playing Azul without practicing at all, just with like having good understanding of draft. I realized the game is kind of similar to Agricola in that you're kind of like trying to guess how other people are positioning themselves and trying to position yourself accordingly. So it's kind of cool. So after that, I drove home. That was my entire experience. So let me get back to 2 questions. A, how'd I do? I did great. I did wonderfully. I'm very happy with how I did. The Agricola didn't go great. I got third in Azul. I got a plaque. I got some laurels after learning the game. And so that's great. And next year, if I go, I will definitely learn more games. I'll try to figure out a good schedule of like what to play, what to do, what I want to learn for the event. And I'll try and make as much out of it as possible. So overall, for my experience, I had a blast because A, I knew a bunch of people there. I get to play a lot of Agricola a good amount of Agricola in my off time. Now, I can't say a lot because it's not that much compared to what other people did. I played some Agricola in my off time. I got to learn a bunch of games. I got to meet a bunch of really amazing people. By far the best experiences were the people that came up to me and said, I enjoy your content, or I watch your videos, or like talk to me about streaming or anything like that. I had a bunch of people come up and talk to me. Off the top of my head, shouts to Schmog, who gave me the t-shirt. Shouts to Marco, who came up to me. Shouts to there was someone, I think it's Mont, who came up to me and we talked for a bit. Shout outs to, there were a bunch of people, the person who said, you're Econ Sean, shout outs to that guy, and the dad as well who came over. Just so many people who like recognized me and said something. I super appreciate that. That was awesome to hear. That like makes me want to make more content in the future, because that it's nice to know that people enjoy the gameplay. It's nice to know that people enjoy that, and like I've been in a place recently where I'm asking the question of like, why am I making content when I might not enjoy the game as much? And it's like, well, there's other people who enjoy watching you play and enjoy watching what you do, and I try and show off my own personality in the gameplay as much as possible, and I'm glad that people enjoy that. That's something that's like really nice to see, and I every single compliment I got, every single person that came up to me, I really appreciate it. And if you see me any place at a board gaming convention or whatever, say hi. I don't bite. I really appreciate that. That was like one of the best things. Now, the other question that I want to ask, should you go to WBC? Should you go to this event? Is this type of tournament something that you should go to? And I will say the structure, I think, is very friendly. If you are someone who enjoys a wide variety of board games, I think this is a pretty good event for you because, like, you can, in open gaming, if you're more flexible with what games you're willing to play, you could probably find something that's in that ballpark. If you're, so the problem with, for me, is that if I want something very specific, right? If I want to play just Agricola, I have to know a bunch of people who also just want to play Agricola. If I wanted to learn a game, I have to know someone who's willing to teach me that game. And there are a lot of people who are willing to teach various games. Like, I'm sure I could have found someone to teach me Arc Nova. But my experience is definitely, it's jaded a little bit by the fact that, like, I had, you know, I knew a bunch of people going in. I had the streamer thing. And so it was like, you know, it was a good experience. Some of the vibes at tables were a little off. So I mentioned the Seven Wonders table, which was off. The final Azul table, the guy to my right who was table talking, I didn't mention this, but also after the game, I needed to go to drive back to my house because I was doing that in the evening. I had mentioned that at the table. And he spent a long time, like, talking about what people could have done better without it being really solicited by people. And, like, I don't know. He, like, the reaction I got, because I kind of cut him off because he was going into a lot of detail, and I wanted to get out of there and go and get my little badgie thing. And I wanted to get on the road because it was, like 7 or 8 o'clock at that point. And I said, hey, can we just get the scoring in so that way I can go? And his response was something along the lines of, like, oh, well, if you don't have time to play in the event, don't play in the event. Like, come on, dude. I just want to go. I want to get on the road. You don't have to be a dick. Just let me be nice to other human beings. Be considerate of them. And then he had the nerve at the very end of it to throw in a, like, oh, well, I would have gone for the column first, but that's just me. For what it's worth. He threw it out for what it's worth. For what it's worth. So if you see me, if you know who I am, we're rivals now. We're enemies. That guy and me, we're enemies. Don't give me it for what it's worth. Don't delay all I want to do is get on the road. All I want to do is go home to see my cat and my husband. That's all I wanted to do. And I mentioned that. It's just like, be considerate. So, but whatever. The nice Asian lady one, I was very happy about that. So, so the question is, like, you know, should you go to a board game convention? Flexibility, if you're flexible. If you have the time, I think that you kind of also have to stay for the entire week to get enjoyment out of it, because the way the scheduling works, a lot of the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals are like later in the week for events. So like Cascadia, even though there were heats on like Saturday and like Sunday or Monday or something like that, the finals weren't until the next Friday. So it's like, if you want to play in those finals, you have to stay for that entire time. I think you can go and just like play board games casually, but like if you're doing that, you know, why can't you just get a group of friends locally and play board games near you instead of having to go to a very expensive convention? It's kind of an interesting sell of, like, you know, who's the person this is catered to? Is it catered to people who just want to play board games for fun? Is it people who want to play a little bit more seriously? It's kind of in that in-between of, like, people want to play kind of seriously but want to play a wide variety of board games. And I think that is the average board gamer, which is not like me. I like playing specific board games that I get into, and I like playing that specific game a lot, and this game doesn't really cater to that because, you know, for Agricola, there's at most 5 games that you play that are official tournament games. That's it. That's the most that you could possibly play. And so I think that, like, for you, right, I encourage you. I mean, it was fun. I really enjoyed my time. But, like, traveling, I wouldn't have traveled across the country for it. I did it partially because I knew a bunch of people there and I got to meet a bunch of people, and also because I really enjoy board gaming. There's a lot of board games I learned that I'm really happy to have learned, like Azul and Cascadia and Elkfest. Really happy to have learned Elkfest. So I think that decision at the end of the day, it is up to you. You know what the event is about. You know about my experience with the event. You know, there were a lot of really great tables. I know I mentioned, like, the bad tables where the vibes were bad, but, like, the Agricola table where, like, I got totally punked by the guy on my left. Vibes were great at that table. It was just, like, a nice table. Everyone was, like, very cordial, even though we were blocking each other, even though some bad stuff was happening. We were all just having a good time, even though I was kind of miserable, like, getting owned. It was, like, totally fine. Like, there are a lot of really nice people. There are a lot of people who are willing to teach people how to play games. There are a lot of people willing to share advice, but make sure that people ask you first before you share that. And it's just like it was a good time. I will be going back next year. If you see me there next year, then say something, come say hi or whatever. I think that it could definitely be an event that if you enjoy the wide variety of board games, you should look at what they have and decide. You shouldn't just, unless you are committed to learning a lot of stuff and doing that, or just committed to doing a lot of board gaming. Because if you're committed to that, you can probably find a lot of people in open gaming to just teach you about different board games, or you can find different games that you can learn how to play. So that's my synopsis of WBC. That's my story. That's everything. And everyone in Twitch chat, say bye to YouTube. Goodbye, YouTube. This will be the YouTube video. Goodbye, YouTube. I will make a tier list of all the games I learned, by the way, at some point, I think. So if you look for that on my main channel. Goodbye, everyone on YouTube.